News at 6.
A new report by a reproductive health advocacy group finds more people from nearby states are coming to Kansas to get abortions. Clinics around Wichita tell 12 News reporter Cale Chapman they're changing how they operate to better serve the growing number of people seeking their services. New at 6, Cale speaks with Trust Women about what they're now seeing.
More patients from Texas are coming to Wichita's Trust Women Clinic since the Lone Star State banned abortion.
We saw initially that travel impact our Oklahoma City clinic, but then after Oklahoma banned abortions ahead of the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe, those patients started coming to our Kansas clinic.
Trust Women Communications Director Zach Gingrich-Gaylord says the clinic's seen more than 4,000 patients so far this year. He says that's a significant increase since the U.S. Supreme Court's Dobbs decision that overturned national protection of abortion rights and some states further limiting abortion access.
Reproductive health care in this region looks this way because of abortion bans in other states.
Trust Women says more than 80% of the patients they see travel to Wichita from out of state. Over half of those out-of-state patients come from Texas, and just over 20% come from Oklahoma. But they've also seen patients from as far away as Mississippi and Florida.
Wherever people can get an appointment, they're getting there.
In their monthly abortion provision study, the Guttmacher Institute says 65% of abortions provided in Kansas during the first half of the year were provided to out-of-state patients. State Representative Emil Bergquist is worried Kansas has become an abortion destination.
My concern is that our state has become a destination of belief that we can throw out any law that protects a woman, her health, and protects parents' notification in the case of a minor even have an abortion.
In Wichita, Cale Chapman, 12 News.
Trust Women says they've now tripled their full-time staff in response to these growing numbers. Representative Bergquist says in the legislature he will continue to try and pass laws that protect women and children.